Hello. Good afternoon. It's a Sunday afternoon, and I'm just going to be cracking on with some of the game. It's been quite a while since I've done a live stream, as you might be able to hear from my voice. And if you've watched any of the recent videos, I've been ill. I've got the dreaded COVID. So I was away for work for a week, which meant I couldn't really do much. And then I've come back with the wonderful gift that keeps on giving of COVID. So I won't be as talkative today, I wouldn't have thought, but this will get saved onto the YouTube channel so you can watch it back and I can remember how bad my cold and COVID was. Right, I'm going to crack on with some stuff today, getting some more sprite animations set up to do pickups, as in the character lifting his arm to pick things up, and then hooking up some new walkable areas for the main shop area. I put out a time lapse yesterday, which I'll put up in the corner after this is pre-recorded as a link to it, of drawing the rest of that shop floor room. There's been other time lapses as well since I've been off the live streams, but yeah, they're all available on the YouTube channel. Okay, I'm just gonna crack on, I think. So I am setting something up at the moment, which I might do a separate tutorial on, which is continuing on from the tutorial I did about the walks, like the walk directions. And what I've been setting up is this take animation, and it's a dead simple bit of animation that I've been creating. So this pickup. So it's a 4-frame animation here in Sprite, which is literally his arm going forward as if he's picking something up from a table or something in front of you. Looks slightly dubious actually when you play that backwards, but that is the Sprite animation, and it's been pulled into a Sprite sheet. That tutorial that I did the other day about Sprite sheets and walking, it's exactly the same process. What I have noticed, a couple of issues. I created a new preset that included the, I'll just stop this actually, a new preset that included the slicing and the, whatever it's called, the anchor point. And one of the problems with that is it took all of these names in that template as well. So when I applied it to the other sprites, it bloody renamed everything exactly the same. So my pickup right, my pickup left, and my pickup down have all been named _D. So it's just a housekeeping thing really, but it's annoying. So I'm just gonna change these whilst we're here. Annoyingly, you can only change them in here. I'm also rocking a big mic today rather than the headset mic because my voice is even quieter than normal. So if I keep banging into that, apologies, because it's weird it being right in front of my mouth. So I'm just renaming these and then clicking apply, and then it's going to pull all those sprites in with that name instead. I didn't actually realise you could do that. That's handy. You can just click it in the panel at the side and it updates the sprite in the sprite editor. Apply on that. Yeah, so they've all got, the sprites are all named the correct thing now. So yeah, these are just dead simple pickup animations, just literally 4 frames moving his arm. There's some stuff to sort out, but using the same animator controller that we've got all the idles and walks and stuff, and eventually we'll have the talks in, you can just create a new state, like a new empty state, or you can drag a animation clip that you've made onto there. It does the same thing basically. I've done the up one because I was just testing out a minute ago how that's going to work with this little mug, so that he walks in front of it, faces up, and the pickup animation plays when you click on the hotspot. I'm going to carry on creating some of these, and I'll do a separate short tutorial just on that, but you'll kind of see it as I'm going through today. So I just need to set up all the other pickups. So easiest way, create animation clips from these. So I'm actually calling these take and not pick up because there's going to be like a bend to pick up as well and a reach to pick up things that are high, but I'm just calling this take because it's just arm sticks out. So take underscore R, and if we actually look at the animation for that, you'll see it's just 4 frames. So those 4 frames that I had selected, they've now become this animation clip. And if you pop open this sprite thing, you actually see the graphics of him there. But what I want to do is actually have that frame where his arm's fully stretched out last for another frame, and then actually come back through these frames. I'm just copying and pasting back to this one. So we end up with an 8-frame animation there, where his arm comes out, like pauses for an extra frame, then comes back, just to make that smoother. So that's take right. I'm going to do the same with take left. Create a clip for that. Exactly the same thing as well. Just copy that frame. Oops, not there. There. Just using Control and C and Control and V to copy and paste them into that. So, and then we just need to do the down one. Where did that go? Did I just misclick that? Be so. Right. So, got all those animation clips. Half the struggle with Unity is like housekeeping, keeping things in the right places. So I should really move them into my prefabs animations because that's where I've put all the other animations of Clive. I was using a different naming convention as well before. This is the thing when you're dotting between this and life and work and everything else, you forget what you'd established last time. But doesn't particularly matter in this case. We just want to make sure that the player Clive animator controller that has got all of these anim clips in, that's where we're going to be dumping them. The naming's kind of important as well here. It's useful these being called Clive and things here, but when it comes to the actual name of the animation clips, short's good, and you'll see why. And the underscore direction, down, up, left, right, that's also really handy because Adventure Creator has like a prefix, auto prefix. It's expecting them, so you can shorten some of the little actions that we're going to make. So we'll keep these in the same order that the default ones are in. So let's take up, let's do take down, just drag that onto there. I'm going to rename it up here, so it's just called take down, all lowercase as well. Learned our lesson last time. Take left, take right, and just rename them as well. You'll see why in a second. It's useful it being called Clive because there's going to be other characters, and it just helps me find the animation clips when I'm looking for a particular character ones. So these are all correctly named. They've all got the animation clips on them. What we need to do now, remind myself, the animator controller is kind of in use by the player character all the time, so it's being used when you walk. So it's basically playing the walk right when he's walking to the right, the walk left, this one here when he's walking to the left, walk up and walk down. So there, I did a tutorial about hooking all of them up. And what we're going to hook up now is one of these takes. So take up, what I do with this mug, I've just put a little hotspot over this mug. It's not actually a separate object, so can't pick it up yet, but I'll maybe get around to that today. You click on it, and you'll see it just plays that little animation where his arm goes up. We'll do that again. So hopefully you can see that on the stream. It might need to be zoomed in a little bit. So when you click on the mug, that's just that lift of his arm to pick it up before it goes in the inventory. So what's happening there is it's just triggering that take up. So take _U facing up. And Adventure Creator's got a really simple way of dealing with that. I'll show you how you set that up. So what we have first of all is this hotspot. In fact, I'll just delete it. I'll do it from scratch so you can see. So if I had this as a separate graphics asset, that would be handy. I haven't at the moment. I mean, I could do. We could just do it. No, I won't. I'll show you the hotspot bit first. If it was a separate asset, you could select it. If it was just like a tiny little PNG. And then when you click hotspot 2D, because you've got it selected, it would actually put the little hotspot perfectly around it, which is really handy. At the moment, depending on what I've got selected, when I click hotspot, it'll say, do you want to convert the sprite? It's the background I just clicked on. I can just say no, and it'll just create a hotspot. Oops, grab hold of it. Can't get hold of it. Let's have a look. What have I done? Hotspot 2D. There we go. So I would recommend always pulling the center point roughly to the bottom of the thing that you're going to put it on. You can edit the collider. So this is just where the mouse pointer will, like the hotspot area. So I'll just put that just around it. And then this is similar to some of the other things I did in the other tutorial. You then need to tell it what to do. So first thing to do, give it a name that makes sense. Again, prefixes are handy because then you can find all your items. So item _mug. The label is actually what turns up in the interface when you hover over it. I'll be doing some of that probably next week. The actual UI, it tells you what you're mouse overing. We're not using the highlight system. What that object to highlight is you can, if that was a separate PNG, there is built into Adventure Creator like a little highlight, so it just raises the brightness of that PNG when you mouse over it, but not using that in this game. What we do need is a walk to marker, and it will take the name of this item and it will create it in the markers section here. So when I click walk to marker, marker 2D item _mug, you can see it's appeared down there, and it's that little green arrow. So let me just grab that. We'll just position that within the walkable area. So this is basically where the character's going to stand when you click on this item. And the direction is just set with the Unity's rotate tools, but I want him facing up, so that's fine. So coming back to the item, so he's going to walk to that marker. We're not using different cameras in this scene, so don't need to worry about that. Don't need to worry about any of them. I'm just going to do a use interaction. You could add multiple ones, so you could look at, examine, or use an inventory item on it, but in this case I'm just going to do use. And you've got the choices use, talk to, look at, but we're just going to do use. And the interaction is the important bit where we're going to put together just a very short script. It's not something you have to actually script. It's using the action lists. So I can click on plus there and it'll create one for me. Again, it'll take the name of all of this. Use mug. It's called it use 2 because I deleted the other one, but you can then click this little icon at the side, Adventure Creator icon, for an action list editor. And seen a little bit of this before, but what we're going to do is a string of events for when somebody clicks on that. So I always leave this engine wait one in and drag out from it just in case I need to pause for a moment or drag something else out and have multiple flows going at the same time. So I always leave that one. It's just personal preference. And what we're going to do is we are going to, from the type, there's loads of different types here, but it's character that you want, and we want to animate the character. And the character that we want to animate is the player, so you click that. And the method of animating it, what we're going to do is play a custom animation clip. And this is where all of this comes in handy, like knowing the names of these things. So the custom animation clip we're going to play is called take_up. So if I wrote take_up, it would play that specific clip once the character arrives at this point after that interaction. But this little line underneath, really handy. Hopefully you can read that on the stream. Add directional suffix, so that is the _up, _down. So it can do this for you. Adventure Creator basically looks at which direction they're facing at that point, and then it'll add the suffix at the end, so you can take that off, click that button, and it means later if I decide I want him facing right and picking that up, I just change this and it will play the correct animation from the animator controller, which is incredibly handy. A couple of other options here as well. Don't need to worry about layer indexes for now. I'm going to click wait until finish and then return after idle, so it'll play the whole of those 8 frames where his arm comes out and then comes back to his side before we do something else. Because what we'd be doing is we'd want him to grab it, his arm come down, and then that item appear in the inventory. We haven't got it as an item yet, but this should suffice to show how it's going to work. So you don't need to save these, they're automatically saved as they go, so you can just close that editor. And it should now, if we do one other thing here, so on this item mug hotspot, it's going to use that interaction that we've just made there. And the player action, we want it to walk to the marker. So this was the marker that we set up. And if we click face after moving, it will then face the same direction as the marker, and that'll cause this directional suffix to pick up which direction he's facing. So it will kind of do it all for you. So if I click play now, and I haven't messed something up or spelt something wrong or put a take with a capital T, when I click on the mug, he should walk to it, face it, play the animation, and then return to his idle. So that is everything you need to set up that kind of thing. Let's instead, let's have him walk to here, and then play the right facing one as well, just to check my logic that this does work. So if I grab this and actually make the character walk to there and face right, and I think it approximates it because I haven't done it exactly -90. So if I hit slightly down, it should approximate it to right. So let's try this out. So I haven't changed anything apart from the walk to marker. So when I click that, there you go. And you saw it played the right one instead. The right one, the right hand side one. So there's a couple of other things that, I mean, tips, I guess, from having done this for a few years. Objects like that, small objects, it depends. I mean, a player never notices these things, but really you'd want that item to disappear as soon as his hand touched it, not when his hand goes back to his side. And it's very, very easy to get caught up with the detail when it doesn't really matter. People just want to pick up the mug, but I get caught up with it. You're not going to be getting I mean, you could do it, but I don't recommend it, that his hand grabs it and then you see it in his hand. It's just far too much detail. It would be better if when his hand gets to it, it disappears. I think with older games, quite often the hand would just swing out and back and then the item would disappear. So it's the timing of when that item disappears is what I'm getting at. It's up to you how you do that. There are a number of things that we need to do in Adventure Creator when we get rid of something off screen, because the little hotspot remains. We need to actually add the item into the inventory. There's quite a bit to set up, but I'd need this mug separate in order to do it. It might be worth going through and looking at that, because in effect it would all go in exactly the same interaction. What you'd be having is, once that animation had played, you would want to add the item to the inventory. So you'd go inventory, add or remove an item. We haven't created inventory items, that's why it's throwing an error there. So let's just kind of mock up that action. So if I go to the Adventure Creator, inventory, let's create a new item. So this inventory item, let's call it mug. You can see there's loads of options for any inventory item. I'll make this a little bit bigger. I normally use my ultra wide screen, which gives me a lot more space, but I've found for the streams it's just too small. You can't really see what's going on. So this is a mug. We're not carrying it on start. This is where you'd set up the graphics for that particular mug. You can set up interactions from the inventory. So if you look at it when it's in your inventory, combine events where you combine it with something else. This is all part of Adventure Creator's tools, basically. I haven't got a graphic for this mug yet, but we could. I'll tell you what. Let's just do it. We've got the graphics. So I need to open up locations, office. So it'll be in amongst the many layers here. Desk and items there. Mug. So we have actually got the mug separate. So turn everything else off. Turn the mug on. It's good, it's within a group. There's probably quicker ways of doing this. People screaming at the screen. I also noticed as well there's some highlights I've put on the wrong layer, which might actually be on the mug layer, looking at it. Yes, they are. That's going to cause problems straight away. So, I've not really done much of this in Sprite. I assume if I export, those who've been following other bits of the stream, Sprite totally new to me, less than a month ago really. I'm not going to reach over the microphone for a drink. So there's quite a bit of Sprite, especially exporting and things. I maybe don't know the fastest ways of doing it, but I'm learning as I go. So I'm hoping I can just export that individual item and that it won't export this huge thing. Let's have a look. Export as. So don't know if it auto trims. Let's find out, shall we? So the layer, just the visible layers, just the frame. Selection. Right, so if I drew a selection over it, maybe it would, well, let's find out. Let's go and go to my sprites I'm going to try and keep this all in the right place. So this is in the office. I'm just going to call it item_mug. Save that. Let's just see what we actually end up with. No, annoyingly, we end up with a whopping great PNG with a tiny mug in the middle. So, I think there's something called slices that you can do in, unless I can just, yeah, within Unity, we just use the sprite slicer. So if I go my sprites, rooms, office, item, mug, just apply our usual settings to that. That's just to put no compression and filter mode on. And then yeah, so we've got this huge sprite, so we want to just slice it. I think this is probably really inefficient. Again, those who know better are probably screaming at the screen, because that would just slice that bit, I think. That might not work as I intended, actually. So what does that look like? No, it's still huge. No, it would be more sensible if we can just get it out at the size that we want it out at. So let's just use a selection and just pull that in. Oh, these are the things I'm learning about Airsprite that catch me out all the time. So used to like Photoshop and Flash back in the day and things like that. I mean, I want to change like the size of that selection, and I forget that it actually changes the whole pixels. So let's just go export. I wonder actually if I did it as a if you do it as a sprite sheet. Actually, I know what we can use. We can use slices, can't we? So just on here is a slice tool. So you can slice around any part of a much bigger sprite, and you can rename those slices. So that's the mug. Oh, pressed enter, it started animating. So I think when you do file, export as, yeah, you can do this slice. For some reason it hasn't actually renamed it. Don't know why. Let's just, oh, you got to rename it there, right? Let's call it mug. Oh, can you set the pivot there as well? That's interesting. So it's 10 by 10. You can set the pivot to the middle of it and the bottom of it. Let's just see if that works. So we've sliced that. Oh no, I've put the pivot the wrong side, haven't I? So you would want it at 11, which is the bottom of it. Yeah, so there's like a little green pivot there. Just inside the sprite. We'll just see if that comes through Unity. I've no idea. Just learn as I go. So export the slice, which is called mug. 100%. Just that layer. It's going to the right place. Hit export. Overwrite that one that we did. Back to Unity. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So we've got a tiny little mug there. Lovely. The pivot's not right, but that's no biggie. Pivot's not that important actually, for this object anyway, because it's not something that the character can walk around. But we'll leave that like that. So a couple of things we need to do. This, again, this is something that took me a while to understand, but the inventory item, excuse me, can be a different graphic to the item that's in the game. It's actually in the scene. And that's sometimes because you have very different styled things in the inventory. They might be a different size, they might have more detail on them. I think some games, I'm playing the Drifter at the moment, which you should definitely play if you've not had a go and you like point and click adventures. The Drifter on Steam. Incredible pixel art in it, really atmospheric, great voice acting. One of the things that lets it down actually is the inventory items. They're all in grayscale and they all look very similar, but they're not the items that you pick up in the game. So this mug here would be slightly different angle. It would be grayscale, not the colour it was picked up. So you can set here the main graphic to be totally different to the asset that's actually in the room. I think with these, if I search for item underscore mug, let's just put it as this one for now. But I can already see a problem because it uses a texture, not a sprite, and that doesn't seem to include the no point filtering, so it's going to be really blurred, but it'll do for now. What we want to do is in the actual scene, we want to place this mug in the scene. So I'm going to grab the sprite and I'm going to drag it out into, ideally you want to put them in a separate folder, all the items you have. I'm just trying to think where I could do that for now. Let's just pop it in the hotspots folder for now. So you'll see we end up with a mug graphic there, and it's at its default scale. So we can scale it up so that it matches. I think all of our stuff is scaled by 4. I think it was. No, not quite. Looks like it's arbitrary. Well done, Andy. That'll do for now. We of course need to move the one that's on the export. So we've exported this desk with the mug in it. So you need to make sure that when you do those kind of exports that they've got the things hidden that you're going to have as separate items. And it's part of the thing of remembering that doing the pixel art, at the time you're drawing it all, sometimes you don't want to be thinking about all those separate assets. I try and remember, like I've laid it out here, but ultimately that desk and items, these things like the post-it note and things, that's going to be separate because you're going to be able to take the post-it note. You're not going to be able to take any of these other things, but it is important to kind of think of them as separate bits. So the desk and items, I think, turn everything else off. We just want to export that desk and items. Actually, perhaps we can use this slice thing again and start thinking about these as separate slices. Oh, does it not let you use the slice tool on a folder? Yeah, it looks like it's got to be actually. Well, this is interesting. So if I set that as a slice, it didn't work. I wonder why not. Let's try again. Oh, doesn't like a slice over a slice. Is that what it is? Yeah, so one slice can't be inside another slice. Makes sense, kind of. So this desk, we just want to export that as it is, where it hasn't got the mug on it. So let's just do file, export as. I think we've probably already got this item. Yeah, office desk and items. So that was an export we did before that's got the mug in it. So I'm just going to overwrite that. Replace that. Don't want the slice. Whole canvas. Export. Yep, so you can see now Unity's automatically imported it again. So it's not got the mug there now. So we're going to pop the mug there separately. This is something I'm going to have to watch out for here, because the size of the pixels on this are obviously going to be a giveaway that it's a completely separate asset, but it doesn't particularly matter at the moment. The other thing that we're going to need to do, I've obviously named these two things. I've now got a sprite, which is the item mug. This is the sprite rendering. And then there's that whole hotspot that I set up. So ideally, I should have had this in the first place and then created the hotspot and everything. Halfway between showing you how to do it and just getting on with it. But the mug itself, if I'd had it selected when I created the hotspot, then when I click hotspot 2D, it would have put it around that item, as I mentioned at the start. But it's there now. In fact, it's worth thinking about this. Let me... Yeah. Having these organised in a way where you've got the hotspot, the yellow hotspot area, and the graphic together, nested. I'm remembering something from a previous point-and-click game. Adventure Creator holds the hotspot and the PNG or the sprite as two separate assets, so you need to hide the sprite so it looks like the character picked it up, but also hide the hotspot so that the area isn't clickable anymore. And I think they always both have to be done, even though they might be nested together. But in terms of a scene that might have had lots of objects in, I think I got into the habit of nesting them so that there was just less things here in the hierarchy, end up being absolutely loads of stuff in the hierarchy. But yeah, 6 and 2 3s really, it's just part of the constant housekeeping, trying to keep it clean. So let's have them as they are at the moment. They're just going to get a bit confusing because that's the hotspot and that's the actual sprite. What I'll do is I'll rename that just so it makes it easy to see what's going on as I'm explaining this. Sprite mug and item mug. So what we want to do, now we can hide that. First thing we need to do is we need to change the layer order of it. So the ordering layer, need to bring that forward a bit so it sits in front of the other stuff. We also just want to check, because again, this is slightly new way of doing layer sorting. And you see that it's now going to be in front of him when he walks through it. So that is not the correct way to set the layer order for that. It needs to be less than less than Clive basically, and I can't remember what Clive's on. It's using anchor points to work out the sorting layers, and that I think is it looking for the floor point of that and to determine whether Clive's in front of or behind it. So again, I might be misunderstanding the best way to do this, because I think it's using this point to work out whether it should be in front of or behind Clive. And I'm not totally sure the best way to change it. So, actual player sprite here. Don't think he has a layer order. Yeah, it's this follow sorting map. Let's drag him into the scene for now. The mug's definitely in front of him. Let's have a look. Yeah, I was thinking of moving the anchor point right the way down here, and then it would just get sorted correctly. But I don't think that's how you're meant to do it. Might have to have a ask on a forum about that. Especially with an item like this, it's at like table height. Don't really want to have a longer sprite. I don't think I could. So this can't be lower than the... it can be lower than that, but good luck guessing where it's meant to be. I think it is using that to do the layer sorting. Just have a look in play mode what it says Clive is at. Don't think it gives a layer order. Yeah. I wonder if the actual... Yeah, it's tricky with something like this because you want it to walk in front of it here and behind it there, so it does need to be properly layer sorted, which makes this example a complicated one. So if the mug if we use its pivot as the sorting thing, and Clive is at 0, so anything lower or anything at 0, the idea was that this should automatically get sorted by pivot point, but because it's sat on the desk, it needs to be in front of the desk, it needs to be behind Clive when he's that side of it, and in front of Clive when he's that side of it. So I picked a really difficult example because it's on something you can walk around, which is interesting. I think the simplest way to do it is to have its pivot down here and let the layer sorting code sort it for us. I'm just not sure how I have it in front of this desk as well without messing with the desk sort order. Because if I end up putting that as -1, then I think what will happen is Clive's sorting, will go wrong as well. Well, this is complicated, isn't it? Yeah, I wonder if this center point override can be used for that. Well, I think that's to do with the hotspot. And you could add a different sorting layer, but I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, so you can't have a sprite that is. You can't have a pivot that's lower than the sprite by the looks of it. And that would become really confusing. Yeah, I've puzzled myself there. I think I have to come back to that. It's a really complicated example of an object that's sat on top of another object, and both objects can be walked behind. I'll stick something on the forums on Adventure Creator about the best solution for something like that, and then from this day forward I will avoid doing that again, because that seems really complex. We'll forget about the layer order, but I'll still do the interaction of actually collecting it, like picking it up. So if you go to collect it and his hand goes out to grab it, we want it to disappear. We want it to go into his inventory, and the hotspot to disappear as well, so that the mug doesn't seem to be there anymore. So let's set all that up, even though he's walking through it at the moment. So on the mug use, so this one, remember the action, it was the character animates, does his take in the correct direction, and then we're going to inventory, add or remove, we're going to add the mug. Now we've added that to the inventory. I'm going to add it to the front of the inventory because you can have things added to the back, depending on whether you want the player to see that item in the list first. So it's going to add the mug. So you'll see that happen if I go to inventory and click play. and click on that, you will now somewhere in Clive, I think it tells you, there you go, current inventory. You select Clive, you can see he's picked up the mug. So in memory, it's there. You can see in the inventory's popped up to show it there. The mug's now shown in the inventory. But it's still in the scene, so we need to hide it in the scene and then hide the hotspot. So a couple of things that we want to do. We go back to the mug use action. You can drag out, like, you can run multiple actions at the same time. It doesn't particularly matter in this case, but I'm going to create one here to remove the mug from the scene and remove the hotspot from the scene, because they all happen like within a CPU cycle, so it happens really quickly. So if you go hotspot, enable or disable, and the hotspot that we want to affect is this item mug hotspot. You can drag that onto there, and the thing we want to do is we want to disable it. I think when I've had these as parent and child before, you can also disable any other things beneath it. When I've used things like highlights and things, you can do that all in one go, but that should be fine. And then the other thing that we want to do is we want to get rid of the actual item on the screen. So from memory, I've forgotten completely. I think it's object. Add or remove, yeah. So we want to remove an object from the scene. So it's the sprite that we want to remove. So I'm going to drag that onto there. But what we need to do, we'll just try that out. It'll probably look right, but there'll be an issue. So we click on the mug, grabs it, it's disappeared. If I go up, you can see it's in my inventory now. It's disappeared from the scene. There's no hotspot. That's great. But if I leave the room and I come back in, it's back again. And that's to do with the way the memory is managed in Adventure Creator. It's basically done really efficiently, so you have to tell Adventure Creator whether you want the status of things to be remembered room to room, because these are kind of unloaded from memory and then reloaded. So it's really simple to set that up. Anything that you need to remember, whether the hotspot's shown or remember whether an item, you can just add a component to them. So with the hotspot, if you just type remember there, so remember hotspot, and it will automatically attach it to the hotspot that's on this game object. It gives it a constant ID, and this just lets the game code set a toggle of whether it's on at the start or not, and then to remember it room to room. So it's as simple as that. You don't need to do anything else other than add remember hotspot. And then with the actual sprite, this is something that's called remember transform, I think. So I think it's transform, and it's ultimately because all game objects have a transform, and this remember transform does the same thing, saves to memory whether that item is there or not. I think that's correct. Let me just remove. Try to think what the other ones are called. Actually, no, it's remember visibility. So we don't want to remove the item. We want to just make the sprite renderer invisible. So yeah, it's all coming back to me. So on this mug use, we don't want to use an object add or remove. We want object visibility, and it's the visibility of that sprite we want to make it invisible. And that's where you can also affect the children and anything else that's a child of that object. So in effect, exactly the same thing will happen, but the mug won't be deleted out of the scene, it will just be hidden. So the sprite's hidden, the hotspot's hidden, and then when we leave the room, because we put remember visibility and remember hotspot, they remain invisible when you come back. So they're now kind of memorized. Whichever scene you go to and come back, it remembers that you've got them and it's there in the inventory. So another part of that action that I sometimes find useful, especially if you've got hidden inventory, as in it's not shown on the screen. If you think of like Monkey Island and things, there's like a inventory box down here with loads of items in it and all the verb coins. I like to use like the whole of the screen for the game graphics. And when you slide the mouse, this is the default behavior of Adventure Creator as well. When you slide the mouse up to the top, the inventory appears, or you can create a little button to click. I can show, we'll do some on setting up an inventory button and those things. But you don't know you've got the mug because when you pick it up, it disappears, and we can put some text in there to say, I've picked up a mug. But until you slide up here, you don't realise it's in your inventory. But what we can do is we can add to that interaction to pop up the inventory briefly to show the mug and then hide it again, just so the user knows they've got it. So it's pretty easy to set up. And what you'll notice is we ended up with quite a long action just for picking up this one item. I'm going to do a separate tutorial about creating action templates. They're called action list assets, but a template for picking up any item where there's just variables for which item it is and which items to hide. And then you can use one template and just plug in your items. It makes it much quicker. But the other action we want to do is we're making them invisible. We want to open a menu and we want to change the state. And the menu we want to turn on is called inventory. Can't remember how it's spelt, but that might be it. If we go menus, we've got one called inventory there. So what we're going to do is just turn on that inventory menu just for a second or two and then turn it back off again. So it basically shows them that they've got the mug and then turns off. So it's called inventory. We're going to do change the state. We're going to turn it on. The transition is the fade in, I think. So we're going to turn it on. We're then going to wait for 1 second and then we're going to turn it off. You can drag out a fresh one like that, or you can actually duplicate this one. Sometimes puts it right at the top, which is annoying, but it's up to you, whatever you find quickest. And this time we're going to turn off the inventory. So it should go back through all of this. It plays a character animation to take it based on the direction that it's facing. It then adds the mug to the inventory. It then disables the item mug hotspot. It then makes invisible the sprite of the mug. It then turns on the inventory menu, waits a second, and then turns off the inventory menu. I'll put that to 2 seconds just so we can see that. Hopefully that's all correct, but that's like a whole set of things that's going to happen when he picks up this mug. So click on the mug, walks, animates, picks up, and it didn't show our inventory. I was expecting that to pop up and then hide again. Not sure why. Let's have a look. It should have done. I got the name correct. Inventory. Let's just go back to that action. paste the name in just to make sure it's spelled correct. Yeah, because you can show individual elements. I assumed. It might be because the appear type is set to mouse over. So at the moment that's overriding. I'll just put that to manual. Just to try this out. Because I think that should have worked. Turn on menu. I believe that should have worked, but again, I'm dealing with a slightly more updated version of Venture Creator to the one that I've used for years. Ah, yeah, it disappeared then. Was it already there at the start? I forgot to look. So I think because I've disabled that, like the mouse slide, it's on all the time. So if it was where it says enabled on start, if that was unchecked, so it's not enabled on start. So it's not shown, then I think that action will work correctly. So I'll pick up the mug, you should see it pop up. There it is, it pops up, waits 2 seconds, and then it disappears again. And yeah, it was just because there's the interaction method for the inventory showing is when you slide your mouse over it, and I probably won't have that anyway. I'm probably going to put a little button, like an inventory button that you click. So it will be manual anyway. I'll be setting up actions to open it. But the other thing that this transition to fade it out, and you can wait until that fade's finished before it ends this action. So there's a couple of things. I mean, there's quite a lot going on there, just for picking up a mug. But as I said, I'll do a tutorial, a separate one about action list assets. If you look out for that one, and that will be about how you turn all of this into one little template that you can use for all of your pickups, basically. Because there's a couple of other things you're probably going to want to do. When he walks over to it, you might want the character to say, "Oh, my favourite mug," and then once he's picked it up, he might say, "Oh, it's full of mould," or something. So he might say something before the pickup, say something after the pickup. There's loads of other potentials, and there's a lot of work in making lots of them. If you've got 30, 40 different items in the game, there's quite a lot of them to make. But what we'll do is a couple of those examples will show you how to set them up. It's sometimes worth having something that plays multiple actions at the same time. Try to think how you do it. There's a running parallel. So when this is an action list running parallel action, and you can set quite a few different ones to all run in parallel. And this is where it's sometimes handy where you want like the animation happening of his arm coming up at the same time as the mug being removed as his hand touches it. So we could set up something like that. We could set up some of the text to happen, so as in dialogue that he's saying. So what we'll do is, some of these are probably going to go in a different order, so you can just disconnect the things that you want. We're going to run 2 actions at the same time, maybe more. We're going to hide the mug, so it's going to play the animation, but we're going to hide the mug after a little bit of a delay. so that it happens as his hand's higher up. I mean, we might be able to just do that with a delay. So if we wait for like 0.5 seconds before you hide the mug. I mean, a lot of this you could just do with engine wait actions. You just end up with quite a long chain of them. You could then, if you wanted to, change the order of that and just have the mug added to the inventory only after it's opened. So you see it appear in the inventory. That might be quite interesting. And what we could do is we could just wait a second or so and then have some dialogue. So character, oh no, sorry, dialogue, play speech to play a line. To, oh, my favourite mug. So these two kind of sprues, if you like, these two branches will all run at the same time. There is an auto arrange option here, which is kind of handy, which will put them in nice columns or rows for you. I think you can choose whether it's columns or rows. There's some options somewhere in the Adventure Creator options, but I think I haven't broken that now. So let's just play that through. Thing with dialogue, sometimes dialogue, I'm not sure how it's displaying at the moment. There you go. So that now runs a totally different order. All happens very quickly, but you'll see the hand lift up and the mug will disappear half a second after it starts. So his hand is closer to the mug when it disappears. It then just shows the empty inventory, then shows the mug in the inventory, then shows the dialogue. So the mug actually disappears a bit too late for me, personally. And this is all like down to the detail of it, but it's worth seeing how you can do that. And it's because this wait until finish, it's playing the whole animation. It's getting through that whole arm up, arm down before it's even moving on to this next action. So if I uncheck that, it's then going to do this half-second wait before it hides the mug. It might still be too long, but let's have a look at that. There you go. So it disappears a lot better in my mind. It's like as his hand touches it, it disappears. But personal preference, really, how you want users to be aware of something having moved or left the scene. But I'll do it once more. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see. Oh, he's walked off. He's back. So there you go. So I think all of those actions can exist in a template. I'll do a tutorial for that. And if this is pre-recorded, I will pop it up there, that tutorial for making an action list asset template that you can reuse for all of your object pickups, so you're not having to create this monster thing every time you're doing a object pickup. Have a look at that one after I get around to recording it. Okay, right, I'm going to take a quick break, grab a cuppa, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you. Right. So I'm going to crack on with the shop floor room next, because I've got some new graphics for that and I kind of want to get them in. You might have the same thing if you're making games of your own. Once you've done a bit of graphics, you kind of want to get them added in. So from the office, when you walk out into the shop floor room, this was kind of half drawn. It was one of the first things I drew actually, when I started coming up with this kind of style. But I've done a load of extra artwork here. It's in Sprite, and it's much wider so that it's going to scroll. But there's a lot of individual pieces that some are going to be walk behinds, some are going to be walk in fronts. There's kind of a lot to sort out there. There's some other cool things as well that I'm interested in trying out that I've never done with Adventure Creator, which is all these different surfaces. So I've got kind of carpet tiles at the front, or they could be plastic tiles, I suppose. I've got some laminate floor carpet here. You can actually set, I think, different walkable area materials and then change the footstep sounds. So that's something interesting which I might have a look at. But this scene there's going to be quite a few walkable area holes to cut out, so you can come behind the desk here, so that all of this stuff's on a layer in front of the other bits. So got quite a bit to do in terms of exporting bits here, so it might take me a few attempts to get it right. And it's going to be a long room now as well, so that needs sorting out, because I just randomly dumped in. Oh no, I might have actually stretched it to the right size already. Yeah, we've got the scrolling. I did that in one of the other live streams, I think, or the moving between rooms tutorial, where I set up him reaching the middle of the room and it pushing the room along. Yeah, I think I set that camera system up before. So I'm going to save the office room, just open the shop floor one. So we're starting here, and then we're just going to replace some of these graphics in Unity. But I'm going to need them out as they're separate bits from Sprite. So I've done a pretty good job if you were watching the time lapse of this, of trying to create layers as I go, and then realising there's layer groups which are really handy. So a lot of the things are kind of grouped together, like all the Lino Sail stuff and Larry the Lino Lizard. That stuff can all be grouped, but they're all part of the background and they're not going to be pickable up, if that's a word. So it's not necessary to have them all separate on the export. The only separate things I need are things that are going to be in front of the player, like the rugs here. So there's a stack of rugs. There's all of the vignette or foreground dark things there. I mean, they could all just be baked onto one layer, but I worry I'll change my mind about the colours of things at some point. So I kind of want to keep these all separate. I'm just going to move this. You can move this somehow, can't you? Over to the right. Yeah, it's getting a big list. That's a bit more helpful. So the foreground vignette, definitely want that as a separate layer. So let's select that. Go file, export as. Just want I think you have to hide everything, don't you? Yeah. I wonder if some of the other foreground bits. My issue is I'm trying to think ahead for when I inevitably make a change to this and want to quickly export some of the foreground things. And then have to remember which things I actually had on it. So this foreground rack, I've got some layers that have got nothing on there. Should delete that. I was obviously going to draw some leaflets at some point. I think there's a glass table. Yeah, that's there. The chair. All these things are in the foreground. The counter is going to walk in front of it as well, so that isn't a foreground item. And I think the keyboard, the monitor, the plant, all of those things, they all should actually be in that group, in that counter group. Oh. Again, getting used to how these, I think that's the old desk. Yeah, I decided against that desk that stuck out into the room. I'm going to delete that. So the new counter, that's got the keyboard, that paper. But they're not going to be part of this export. It's whether or not I put the rug stack in that as well, because really all of that stuff is stuff that wants to be in front of Clive or anyone else who's walking about that scene. So what I could do is take the rugs, all of that, just shift it to the top. There was a sign there that's just disappeared. I noticed there's like a little bit of text. That's the rugs label. Let's just merge them. Rug stack. Just trying to tidy up as I go, I think, is again housekeeping. So the rug stack, the vignette, the foreground rack, all of these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to colour code these. Let's have them all as bright green. And then I'll remember. Actually, can you make them black? What happens if you make something black? Yeah, alright. So let's make all of those layers black. Still don't get the multi-select in Sprite. I'd like drag and select all of them, thinking that's going to change the colour of all of them. And then when you come away, it just does the top and the bottom one, doesn't do the middle one. It's very annoying. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing wrong there, but it seems multi-selecting something is not always correct. So I could group all of them. New group. Equally that, the groups, and I don't get everything in. Let's call that foreground. So that I know when I come back to that, all of these are foreground items. Oh, there's that table as well, isn't there? Glass table. I'll put that in that group. And the chair that's with it. That needs to be behind the glass table. And it needs to be behind. Alright. Nope, something's gone wrong here. The vignette needs to be above the rug stack. Alright. Sorted, I think. So all of that wants exporting as the front layer. I think that's everything. So if I close up that foreground group, let's just make that black. Remind me that's a foreground group. Turn everything on again. Yep, I'm just looking around the scene. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that he needs to walk behind. Don't think there is. So these pens are now in the wrong order, but they're going to be something that you can pick up. or certainly that little pen there is, so it's going to need to be separate. But of course this is going to end up having to be that side. I think I'm just making this difficult for myself. Again, this is going to be an object that he needs to walk behind. So I definitely need to solve that problem that I saw earlier on, which is objects that are on a layer that he walks behind and in front of, but the object itself needs to make, I mean, in this case, it's always going to be in front of him. So we can fudge that with a layer order. But that individual pen, we're going to have to make as a separate object at some point. I'll worry about that later. Let's just get that in. Famous last words. Worry about it later. Okay. So the whole, turn them all off. Turn the foreground on. Let's export all of that. Actually, I'm going to add the pens, but I'm going to delete that pen. I can draw that again later. That will be a separate pen that you pick up. At least then all of that is the foreground. Right, that took 5 minutes just to work out what we need to export. So we're doing the whole canvas, just the visible layers, making sure it's going in our sprites, rooms, shop floor. You see there's loads of different versions from when I've been trying to make different versions of this. Just through some of the other tutorials, I must have put out lots of different sizes when I was trying to work out the different sizes. So I need, again, housekeeping, need to clear up that and a tint map and things. I'm not even using tint maps anymore. So this can be shop floor foreground. Right, export that. Show it all, hide the foreground, and then all of this, apart from Clive obviously, and then this rack. I mean, sometimes it's worth leaving them in because we're going to put a separate version of this rack in front of it. It doesn't matter if it's not there in the scene because we're going to overlay them anyway. It's actually sometimes really useful for lining them up. If that doesn't make sense, you'll see what I mean. This is going to be a flat plane, and then I'm going to create a separate overlay so that Clive can walk behind that rack and walk behind this desk. They're the only two things. I've already done that one. These are the only two things that's going to happen with. So we'll just export that as it is as the back plate. Yeah, don't think there's anything else I need to do with that. So file, export as. Shop floor, I'm just going to call it background. Okay, let's just go back over to Unity. So we want to import these two different bits. So if we go to our sprites, rooms, shop floor, we've got all these different other ones. We want to get rid of some of these just to try and keep it clean. So shop floor wider is the thing that's being shown at the bottom, but we should have shop floor background now. We just want to apply our usual settings. And in the set geometry, we've got foreground, backdrop. It's this one that we want to replace. So Actually might just drag the shop floor background sprite. Yeah, they're all going to be in the wrong position here. Let's drag it in. And scale it up. So I'm just manually eyeballing that. I wasn't happy about manually eyeballing these things in the first place, to be honest, but I'm just looking at the settings that I had before for this. So the backdrop, yeah, it was like, it was set to 1 by 1 by 1. It was set to pivot. It had an order of -20, so it was behind everything. Apply all of these settings again and delete that one. So the samples bench is in the right place, that's good. The desk counter, this is the old desk counter, so let's just delete that. Foreground was set to 10, so we need the new foreground in. So shop floor, foreground, just apply our single preset, drag that on. Shop floor, foreground, and just some of them settings need delete the old one, slide it into place. I mean, the position should be exactly the same for both of them, really. If it was 1, I think I noticed this before, it was just slightly the wrong position. 0.9, let's put them both at 0.9 on the X. And they're both overlapped perfectly. Okay, so that's the foreground and the background in. The samples bench is in there already. So what you'll notice if I click play on here, so you can see the foreground stuff's working. He's behind that samples bench. He should be behind the rugs, because all of this was just set to 1 layer. He's behind the glass table, and the pens are on there. But at the moment, the walkable area is wrong because he's able to walk straight over that. And this is obviously in the background, so we need to have that as a separate item, and then we need to actually cut out a hole so that he can walk around that. So we've got a few bits and pieces to sort out. He's also, I think he gets too small. The scale's a bit wrong. I might have to change the size of this door, actually. I was thinking about this the other night when I was drawing it, because this door's quite small. His head's just off it, but you only get one scaling option, like back to front or left to right. And actually he looks too small by the time he gets here, so we might have to change the size of that door at some point, just to get that to feel right. Okay, so let's get walkable area sorted, and let's get these 2 items that you can walk around sorted. So let's get the 2 items out separately. So it's this samples bench, so I've called it middle rack there. It's that whole middle rack. So let's hide everything, just show the middle rack. So we want to export that. separately. So again, we could use those slice things, but I'm just going to export the whole thing like that, because then I can lay it over with exactly the same scale and X and Y, and there's no pixel data in there, so these things are tiny. File size isn't an issue. So let's export that sample rack. So we can do the whole canvas, go in the correct folder, shop floor, middle sample rack. Give them a good name that I can remember. And then the other thing that we want is that new desk, so that new counter. So file, export as. Shop floor, new counter. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of a load of these things that are getting in the way. I think that one is actually being used, 320 by 180 shop floor samples. So I'm going to rename that to first sample rack. Something that I'll be able to recall the name of. So all these are the ones. These can go. So we've got the first sample rack. Get rid of these big tests. New counter. We're not using the tint map. Not using the vignette wide anymore. Shop floor wider was just a temporary. So we've cleaned all that folder up. We've still got everything we need on screen. So we want to do this middle sample rack. New counter. We'll apply the preset. So we've got our 2 bits. And let's drag these up to here. So we want the new counter. We'll set them to 1, 1, 0.9. It's going to line them up perfectly. That's going to sit above and then the middle sample rack. One, 0.9. So you can see that's now snapped exactly over the background. This is what I was saying before about I could have not exported that from Sprite in the background layer, but it's kind of handy because it's there and I can see that this is lined up correctly on it. Like if I move that middle sample rack, you can see that it's lined up perfectly on top of where it should be. So it's sometimes handy to export those bits with them. We're going to have to change these pivot points so that Clive can walk around them and any NPCs can walk around them as well. So we're going to change that pivot, put the pivot at the bottom, click apply. See, it jumps right up there now, so we're going to have to manually put that back in because it's now not going to be 0.9 because we've changed the pivot. But again, really helpful having that thing to line it up with so that it's exactly as you intended in your artwork. Similarly with this desk, so the new counter, we're going to have to use the pivot and set the bottom of that these are really tricky. I remember having a problem with these because I've made these angled things that you want the sprite to be able to walk, the character to walk behind and in front. This sets where their foot classes in front as, so I think I'm going to have some problems with this as well, but we'll see. I need to drag that into place. Okay. And then the walkable area is something else we need to fix. So if we go to the nav mesh here, walkable, we need to edit this now because we don't want, this was the old shape of the old desk, and in a way this can be a little bit simpler now because we don't want Clive to be able to walk down there at all. I think that's as far as we need him to walk really, but we need him to avoid this. I would like it so he can walk all the way down to this monitor, which is going to feel a bit weird, but we want to make sure he's behind that desk and he's kind of got enough floor so that it looks like he walks behind the desk. The actual floor plane though, I want him to be able to go into that door. He shouldn't be able to go any higher than that. We'll see how that looks. I mean, it's all fake, these 2D walkable areas. I think it's a fascinating way of faking being able to walk behind things that aren't actually three-dimensional, but yeah, sometimes you just got to eye it in, right? And similarly, I've put a lot of new bits of art here that you're not going to want to walk into, so we just need to tidy up that walkable area there. Looks about right, I think. Perhaps we don't want him to walk into that leg. I've made it very tight at the back there for him to walk around that, but it just adds a bit of nice depth to it. We're going to have to sort out some of the walkable bits, and we're going to need to punch a hole for this one. So we already have a hole punched for this one, and we had a problem which I still haven't actually looked on the forums about these things that are at a diagonal, and the character walking in front of them. So we're going to end up with a bit of a strange goings on down here, I think, but we'll see what we can do with it. So we need to, we're going to create a hole for, we'll just call that hole rack 2, and that's hole rack 1. So this rack 2 hole, we're going to tighten that up around here. So this is basically saying that this area is not walkable, so that the character can't run through that cabinet. If you watched the other live stream where I set the other one up, hopefully that made sense at the time, even though I did have this problem with the diagonal angle of this being quite deep. We'll see how this works. I'm sure we're going to get some problems we're going to need to solve, because that's what it is, a series of problems that need solving. Okay, there's perhaps as well a third hole that we need, which is the rugs, so that the character can't walk. Oh, actually no, we don't need to do that with a hole. We can just do that with a nav mesh. So walkable, we basically just say we don't want the character to walk into that area, and that just gives the feeling that he can't come that close. Similarly here, actually, now we've got that table in the way, we don't want him to come any closer than that. I mean, this little bit here, to start to wonder whether it's even worth having him walkable into that. It might save us a load of bother, actually, if we don't do that. So they can get around here without some of the problems we'll get with that. So, holes, we need to create a new hole. So we've already got one hole here, and we click create new hole, and we drag the other hole into there. That's the second rack hole. So there's that one, which is rack 1, that one, which is rack 2. And the others aren't holes, they're just, we've edited the walkable area. So let's give that a whirl, see how it looks. I doubt very much it'll be right first time. So we can walk around that one. If we click around the back, if we get down here, in front of that one, lovely, behind it, yeah. So this is the same problem we had with this one. I've set the anchor point to there, which means because his feet are higher than there, he's showing behind it. So I need to move the anchor point, I think, to halfway up it, and then just make sure that it's not walkable so close so his shoulder doesn't get overlapped. So let's just try and sort that one out. So we basically have to make the hole bigger so you can't walk very close to it, so you don't, like, I guess, ruin the effect. So you need to be much wider, certainly on the sides of it. And then the actual object itself, which was called middle sample rack, its pivot, we don't want here, we want the pivot halfway up it. So I'll put the pivot there for his foot placement, in front of or behind, basically. Apply that new pivot. It's going to shift, so we'll have to shift it back. Give that a go. I think this is the best way to do it. I've thought about slicing them into two, but so it goes around it. Yeah, and you can see now, even if I click really close to it, it won't let me click any closer, so his shoulder is rendering behind it. Yeah, I mean, that looks good. That's absolutely fine. When it comes to interacting on these, you've seen with that mug interaction we did earlier on, we can choose exactly where he stands when he interacts with these things, and he'll probably end up standing facing them like that. So we'll have control of where he's in front of or behind things. So that all looks good. You can't walk onto the rugs, which is lovely. Can't come too close to the table. So this is the bit we need to fix now, because he's going to get, yeah, so he's overlapping there. So again, we need to move the pivot, and then we need to give him just a bit more space around here. So when he's round there, though, does that look right? Yeah. So he's behind the counter. That all looks okay. So we just need to give him more space and shift the pivot. So exactly the same thing. Bit more space first of all. We want him to look like he walks close to it. I mean, there isn't much point in him going down in that corner. There's nothing to do down there. We'll just square that off like that. But we want him to look like he walks close to it. And then shift the pivot on the new counter. Yeah, so we kind of put the pivot about here, because he's always going to be behind it. Yeah, that's right. So shift the pivot to there. So he's going to be behind it, and we don't want him to come in front of it when he, yeah, because when he comes over here, he always wants to be behind it. let's give that a shot. Otherwise, when he's behind the desk, he's suddenly going to jump in front of it. I can kind of already see there that there is a slight problem. We're just going to have to limit how far. So when he goes around it. Oh no, it's alright there. Ah, there you go. Yeah, could see that was going to happen. And it's kind of obvious that the pivot's here and he can walk further than the pivot. So let's just kill that last little edge of the walkable area there. Because there's no need for him to go that close. Yeah, so this is always lower than he can walk. That should be fine. I'm tempted to make it a little bit closer. I mean, these tiny little tweaks are sometimes just because you just want a certain effect when he comes up to the counter. I'll be able to put, if he goes to use this computer, because there's going to be a cutscene where he goes to look something up. Yeah, so that's better. His toes are closer to the counter now. You can see his belly button's almost touching the counter, which looks better. Lovely. Yep, that's looking good. Again, I'm not quite sure on the scale. I'm sure the scale's exactly right. Just when he's down this end, it seems right for this door. It might actually be that that door needs to be made a bit bigger. Let's grab the sorting map. So we are using a curve, won't we? Set it to linear. So those who watched that tutorial about setting his size, it's using this little doohickey. The side, this is how big he is at the top of it is 70%, and how big he is at the bottom of it is 125%. So you can set multiple positions, but best of my knowledge, they all have to be on this straight line. You can't have him changing multiple sizes in multiple places on the screen. I'm sure there's probably a way to do it, but it's probably overly complex. So I'm going to set this to linear. It's starting at 70. So it's just a little bit bigger now. Okay, well, that's working quite nicely. Right. So I definitely need to go away and work out the best way of dealing with this mug issue, because its settings at the moment, it's hidden behind the desk and it shouldn't be. It should be in front of the desk, and it isn't letting me walk past it because its pivot is higher than his feet because it's on the desk. So I'm going to have a little look at that. Maybe send a message to the forums on Adventure Creator and just ask how people best deal with that. But I've got quite a few bits done there. We've got all of the take animations set up for the different directions so we can pick things up. I will do a tutorial about the action list assets so that you can basically turn those 6 or 7, 8 different actions into a nice template that you can reuse for whenever you're picking something up. I'll do that as a separate tutorial, so it's a bit shorter, but I think that's going to be it for today. So thanks for watching. Please do subscribe and click the like button. It does help hugely, and if you see any YouTube shorts popping up of any of the time lapses and things, please like them as well. It's really helpful if people are liking the shorts, liking the tutorials, and liking some of the live streams. Hope that's been helpful, and I will catch up with you soon, hopefully. Bye.